Motorist.
Motorist.
12,000 motorists were stopped for speeding in the police crackdown.
Motorized.
Motorized.
A motorized wheelchair.
Motor mouth.
Motor mouth.
Motor neuron disease.
Motor neuron disease.
Motor pool.
Motor pool.
Motor racing.
Motor racing.
Motor scooter.
Motor scooter.
Motor vehicle.
Motor vehicle.
This road is closed to motor vehicles.
Motorway.
Motorway.
Mottled.
Mottled.
The book's pages were mottled with brown stains. His red mottled face showed the effect of too much whiskey.
Motto.
Motto.
Be prepared is the motto of the Boy Scouts.
Mould.
Mold.
Another method used especially for figures was to pour the clay into a mould. Lime jello in a mould. She didn't quite fit into the standard high-flying businesswoman mould.
A socialist intellectual in the mold of Anthony Crosland.
An attempt to break the mould of British politics.
The chemical was used to kill a mold that grows on peanuts.
The walls were black with mould. Mould the sausage meat into little balls. Moulded plastic chairs.
I try to take young athletes and mold them into team players. An attempt to mold public opinion. The lining of the boot mold. The lining of the boot. The lining of
Her wet dress was moulded to her body.
Moulder.
Moulder.
Old papers mouldering away in the attic.
Moulding.
Molding.
Mouldy.
Moldy.
Mouldy cheese. The bread's gone mouldy.
Malt.
Molt.
Mound.
Mound.
An ancient burial mound. A small mound of dirt.
There's a mound of papers on my desk.
The waiter appeared with a huge mound of spaghetti. The waiter appeared with a huge mound of spaghetti.
Mount.
Mount.
The National Gallery mounted an exhibition of Danish painting. Friends of the Earth are mounting a campaign to monitor the illegal logging of trees.
Guerrillas have mounted an attack on the capital. Guerrillas have mounted an attack on the capital.
Tension here is mounting as we await the final result. Tension here is mounting as we await the final result.
Casualties on both sides of the battle have continued to mount.
He mounted his horse and rode on.
He mounted the stairs and looked around him slowly. A car suddenly mounted the pavement to avoid a vehicle coming in the opposite direction.
Entries to the photography competition should be mounted on white paper.
At £6 a ticket, the cost quickly mounts up.
Mount Everest.
Mountain.
Mountain.
The highest mountain in Austria. The Rocky Mountains.
A steep mountain road.
Magnificent mountain ranges.
Snow-capped mountain peaks.
A mountain rescue team. A mountain rescue team.
She was the first British woman to climb the mountain.
I've got mountains of paperwork to deal with.
Her husband went off with another woman and left her facing a mountain of debt.
I have great faith in the power of love to move mountains.
Mountain ash.
Mountain ash.
Mountain bike.
Mountain bike.
Mountain board.
Mountain board.
Mountaineer.
Mountaineer.
Mountaineering.
Mountaineering.
Mountain goat.
Mountain goat.
Mountain lion.
Mountain lion.
Mountainous.
Mountainous.
The mountainous coast of Wales.
A mountainous region.
They were struggling with mountainous debts.
Mountainside.
Mountainside.
Great rocks rolled down the mountainside.
Mountaintop.
Mountaintop.
Mountebank.
Mountebank. Mountebank.
Mounted.
Mounted.
The mounted police.
Jean was mounted on a grey mare.
The statue was mounted on a marble base.
Music blasting from wall-mounted speakers.
Mountie.
Mountie.
Mounting.
Mounting.
There was mounting pressure on him to resign.
The government has come under mounting criticism in the press.
They faced mounting debts.
There's mounting evidence of a link between obesity and some forms of cancer.
The engine is supported by 4 rubberized mountings. The engine is supported by 4 rubberized mountings.
Mourn.
Mourn.
Hundreds of people gathered to mourn the slain president.
They mourned for their children, killed in the war.
She still mourns the death of her husband.
The old steam trains were much loved, and we all mourn their passing.
Mourner.
Mourner.
Mournful.
Mournful.
Durant was thin, mournful, and silent.
The slow, mournful music of the bagpipes.
Mourning.
Mourning.
The Armenian authorities declared May the 29th a national day of mourning.
It was the custom to visit those in mourning and sit quietly with them.
She was recently widowed and wearing mourning.
Mouse.
Mouse.
The cat laid a dead mouse at my feet. A field mouse.
Select the printer icon and then click the left mouse button.
When you mouse over the menu, the different options appear.
Mouse mat.
Mouse mat.
Mouse miles. Mouse miles.
Mousetrap.
Mousetrap.
Moussaka.
Moussaka.
Moose.
Moose.
Chocolate mousse.
Raspberry mousse.
Salmon mousse.
Moustache.
Mustache.
He shaved off his moustache.
Moustached.
Mustached.
A young moustached British officer.
Mustachioed.
Mustachioed.
Mousy.
Mousy.
Mouth.
Mouth.
He lifted his glass to his mouth.
Liam was fast asleep with his mouth wide open.
He demanded £2,000 to keep his mouth shut.
I wish that I'd kept my mouth shut.
I'll go, Travis said quickly before she could open her mouth.
Julia opened her mouth to reply, but they were interrupted.
As the train entered the mouth of the tunnel, the lights came on.
The mouth of the River Tees.
Oops, I shouldn't have said that. Me and my big mouth.
To these parents, a new baby is just another hungry mouth.
The smell of the cooked fish made her mouth water.
Tim's looking very down in the mouth.
She silently mouthed the words, "Good luck."
Philip mouthed something through the glass which she did not hear.
The players mouthed cliches about what they hoped to do at the World Cup. The players mouthed cliches about what they hoped to do at the World Cup.
They mouthed the usual platitudes.
You should have heard Pete mouthing off at Joe.
Morris was mouthing off about his former team.
Mouthful.
Mouthful.
Michael told his story between mouthfuls.
Betty drank a mouthful of beer.
He took a mouthful of his pudding.
Her real name is a bit of a mouthful, so we just call her Dee.
Mouth organ.
Mouth organ.
Mouthpiece.
Mouthpiece.
Ben put his hand over the mouthpiece and shouted to me.
The newspaper was the mouthpiece of the National Democratic Party. The newspaper was the mouthpiece of the National Democratic Party.
Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Mouth ulcer.
Mouth ulcer.
Mouthwash.
Mouthwash.
Mouthwatering.
Mouthwatering.
A mouth-watering aroma coming from the kitchen.
Mouthy. Mouthy.
Movable.
Movable.
A teddy bear with movable arms and legs.
Movable feast.
Movable feast.
Move.
Move.
Please keep the doors closed while the train is moving.
Come on, Sue said. No one moved. Could you move your car, please? It's blocking the road.
The plane moved slowly along the runway, then stopped. The plane moved slowly along the runway, then stopped.
He moved closer to her.
Becca moved down the steps and into the yard. I could hear someone moving around upstairs.
The bar was so crowded you could hardly move.
At Christmas you couldn't move for toys in this house.
Paul couldn't move a muscle. He was so scared.
We've moved 7 or 8 times in the last 5 years. When are you moving to Memphis? They've moved into bigger offices in London. He had to move his mother into a nursing home.
The company is moving its sales center downtown.
My parents kept moving house because of my dad's job.
Neither side is willing to move on the issue of territory.
The two political parties have moved closer towards each other in recent months.
At this stage, children move further away from the influence of their parents and depend more on their friends.
She won't be moved. It doesn't matter what you say to her.
Things moved quickly once the contract was signed.
The negotiations seem to be moving in the right direction.
The plan should boost employment and get things moving in the economy.
The governor has yet to move on any of the recommendations in the report.
You'll have to move fast if you want to get a place on the course.
Several students were moved from the beginner's class into the intermediate one.
He spent 5 years at KLP before moving to IMED as a manager.
Russell was deeply moved by what he heard.
His speech moved the audience to tears.
Seeing her there had moved him to think about the time they had together. Seeing her there had moved him to think about the time they had together.
I have never before felt moved to write, but I feel I must protest.
Could we move the meeting to Thursday?
We seem to be moving away from the main point of the discussion. Come on, get moving, or you'll be late for school.
I think it's time we were moving.
I ought to get moving. I have to be up early tomorrow. The chairman moves that the meeting be adjourned.
I move to approve the minutes as read.
They want to move an amendment to the bill.
This car can really move.
The highest-priced homes are still moving slowly. If the resorts want to keep attracting tourists, they need to move with the times.
She spent time in England where she moved in high society.
Construction of the bridge is moving along.
I hope we can move things along and get the negotiations going again.
A queue formed by the gates, and a policeman tried to move people along.
My dad was in the army, so we moved around a lot. My best friend moved away when I was 10.
Interest rates have moved down.
A drop in wages has meant that these families have moved down the economic scale.
When are you moving in?
Mom and Dad had always planned to move into a smaller house when we grew up.
Steve's going to move in with her.
The big multinationals moved in and started pushing up prices. Investors moved in on a group of car enthusiasts and took over the market.
Police moved in on the demonstrators in the square.
Always check behind the car before you move off.
I enjoyed my job, but it was time to move on.
When you finish, move on to the next exercise.
Jeremy's leaving the company to move on to higher things.
I've moved on since high school, and now I don't have much in common with some of my old friends.
She has long since moved on from the roles of her youth.
By the time the software was ready, the market had moved on.
The police arrived on the scene and began moving the protesters on.
Before we move on, does anyone have any questions?
After 3 days, we decided it was time to move on.
The exhibition has now moved on to Edinburgh.
As time moves on, I'd like the children to play more challenging music.
Time's moving on, we'd better get back to the car.
He moved out, and a year later they were divorced.
They moved out of London when he was little.
Are you ready to move out?
Move over a little so I can get in.
Most companies have moved over to computer-aided design systems. Most companies have moved over to computer-aided design systems.
The company's new publisher just moved over from Villard Books.
Move over, Armani. There's a new designer taking the fashion scene by storm.
To move up, you'll need the right training. Share prices moved up this month.
The kids learn fast and can't wait to move up to the junior team.
He was moving up the ladder and getting management experience.
He's moved up in the world in the last few years, and his new flat shows it.
There's room for one more if everyone moves up a bit.
She's still thinking about her next move.
The board's recent moves to cut interest rates. Most of the council members are reluctant to make such a drastic move.
The authorities have made no move to resolve the conflict.
She decided to learn as much about it as she could, which seemed like a wise move.
Taking the position was a good career move.
It seems there could be moves afoot to close the centre.
Good gymnasts rehearse their moves mentally before a competition.
He made no move to come any nearer.
Martin made a move towards the door.
His green eyes followed Sissy's every move.
One false move, and I'll shoot.
The country's moved towards democracy.
A move away from traditional industries, such as coal mining.
Much more research is being done, which is a move in the right direction.
The rebel army is on the move.
Roy is constantly on the move.
Museums are on the move, adding exhibits that entertain and educate.
Men say they like it when women make the first move.
Several moves later, Ron took his king. It's your move, Janet. It's getting late. We ought to make a move.
The move to a larger office building is long overdue.
Movable.
Movable.
Movement.
Movement.
The civil rights movement of the 1960s.
Mendez led a movement to stop destruction of the rainforest.
The movement for independence.
The dancer's graceful movements.
A slight movement of the curtains showed where she was hiding.
The movement of goods across the border.
He motioned to the door with a movement of his head.
Reports of troop movements in the area.
There's been no movement in the peace talks since Thursday.
A movement towards equality with men in the workplace.
Police are trying to trace Carter's movements since Tuesday.
Mover.
Mover.
He's one of the movers and shakers in Florida politics.
Hummingbirds are quick movers.
An earth mover.
The mover of the motion.
Movie.
Movie.
It was like one of those old John Wayne movies. She once played the innocent victim in a horror movie. A movie about two gay teenagers who fall in love. A movie about two gay teenagers who fall in love.
We took the kids to the movies. In those days, we went to the movies every week. Why were you at the movies all by yourself? He couldn't believe his luck. It was the sort of thing that only happened in the movies. A career in the movies.
Moviegoer.
Moviegoer.
Movie maker.
Movie maker.
Movie star.
Movie star.
Movie theatre.
Movie theatre.
Moving.
Moving.
Bayman's book about his illness is deeply moving.
A moving account of his childhood in Ireland.
Attending the memorial service was a moving experience.
A moving stage.
Be careful when changing lanes in fast-moving traffic.
An archer learning to hit a moving target. An archer learning to hit a moving target.
The company is constantly improving the system, making it a moving target.
He was the moving spirit behind the founding of the Union.
She spoke movingly about her father's last days.
Moving picture.
Moving picture.
Moving staircase.
Moving staircase.
Moving van.
Moving van.
Mow.
Mow.
It's time to mow the lawn again.
The soldiers were mown down by machine gun fire.
He was sentenced to 2 years in prison for mowing down a 9-year-old girl.
Mower.
Mower.
Moxie.
Moxie.
He's a small kid, but he has plenty of moxie.
Mozzarella.
Mozzarella.
Mozzie.
Mozzie.
MP.
MP.
Ken Newton MP. A Labour MP.
She's one of the MPs for Liverpool.
MP3.
MP3.
MP3 player.
MP3 player.
MP4 player.
MP4 player.
MPEG.
MPEG.
MPG.
Miles per gallon. Miles per gallon.
A car that does 35 miles per gallon.
MPG.
Miles per gallon.
MPH.
Miles per hour.
MPH.
Miles per hour.
High winds of up to 140 miles an hour.
M-fill.
M-fill.
MPV.
MPV.
Mr.
Mr.
Mr. Smith is the head teacher.
Mr. John Smith.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President.
She's finally found Mr. Right. I don't think we need any comments from Mr. Sarcasm here.
MRI.
MRI. Brian had an MRI taken Sunday.
Mrs.
Mrs. Smith.
Mrs. Mederman heads the fundraising committee.
Mrs. Super Efficient has already taken care of it.
MRSA, MRSA.
MS, MS. MS.
MS.
Dear Ms. Johnson.
MS.
MS.
MSC,
MSC.
MSG,
MSG.
MSSA. MSSA.
Mount. Mount Everest.
MTF. MTF.
MTV,
M25.
Much.
Much.
Henry's room is much bigger than mine. These shoes are much more comfortable. These shoes are much more comfortable. I'm feeling very much better, thank you. He was driving much too fast.
It's much the best way to do it.
She kept weighing herself to see how much heavier she was getting.
How much longer do we have to wait?
How much further is it?
I was surprised to see how much better she was looking.
how much better life would be if we returned to the values of the past.
You know how much I care about you.
I think you have to accept the pain, however much it hurts.
He talks too much.
We're looking forward to your visits so much. Thank you very much.
The money will buy much-needed books for the school. The money will buy much-needed books for the school. Did you enjoy it? No, not much.
She isn't much younger than me. Tony hasn't changed much in the last 10 years.
We don't go to the theater much anymore. Kids don't play outside as much as they used to.
The house was very much as I'd remembered it.
The taste is much like butter.
Plants are classified in much the same way as animals.
Much to my relief, the conversation turned to another topic. The shelves were lined with books which neither Hugo nor Sally would ever open, much less read. The shelves were lined with books which neither Hugo nor Sally would ever open, much less read. Much as I like Bob, I wouldn't want to live with him.
She was not so much nervous as impatient for the journey to be over.
I don't have much money with me.
Was there much traffic?
He didn't say much about his trip.
Do you get much chance to travel in your job? Do you get much chance to travel in your job?
After much consideration, we have finally arrived at a decision.
Much of the city was destroyed in the attack.
There was too much work for one person.
It would cost far too much to have the thing repaired. It would cost far too much to have the thing repaired. It was such a small thing to have caused so much trouble.
How much is that dress?
How much flour should I use in the sauce?
I know how much hard work goes into looking after a baby.
I hope you have as much fun as I did.
Just do as much as you can.
Some machines cost as much as £20,000.
What are you doing? Oh, not much, really.
There's nothing much we can do to help.
I don't think much of that idea. The car may not be much to look at, but it's very reliable.
It's the best book he's written, but that's not saying much.
I'm not much of a dancer, I'm afraid.
It wasn't really much of a storm.
The effort of climbing the stairs had been too much for the old man.
The shock had been too much for her. She never recovered.
The restaurant's very grand, but the food isn't up to much. Isn't the woolen carpet more expensive? A little, perhaps, but there's not much in it.
Carson strongly disapproved of the plan and said as much at the meeting.
Max was lying all the time. I thought as much.
He looked so stupid. It was as much as I could do to stop myself from laughing. They left without so much as saying goodbye.
He'd received not so much as a thank you from Tiffany.
He's late again. So much for good intentions.
Well, he does admit it when he's wrong. I'll say that much for him.
The car only cost me £1,500, but it cost as much again to get it insured.
It's a bit much expecting you to pay for it all.
The press made much of the discovery.
They've always made much of their nephews and nieces.